2, 1.
Okay, there we go.
Alright, everybody, welcome to Animacast, your podcast for animators and artists by animators and artists. I'm your current host, not Hatena360, here with also not Hatena360, aka Nomar and Yui Ishizaki.
Hello.
How's it going, y'all?
I am not
Doing pretty
Hatena
good.
360.
Doing really good, and I'm not Petita 360 either.
I know, it feels like it's been too long. In fact, it's been months since
Wait,
we've not
actually?
had him on a cast.
Indeed, it did. It's kind of long.
Yeah, it's for
I thought it would be fun to just kind of invite people who haven't really been on the cast, so here you guys are.
and mostly to revive the channel.
I mean, the channel would have been revived. I think he's doing a podcast with Gilded Guy soon, but
Yeah, he like announced it on one.
I want to
stream.
join that. I want to talk to Gilded Guy. Really.
Wow, talk about fanboying.
maybe in the future.
Yes.
Okay, so do you want to guys start talking about the topics now?
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
so today we're going to be talking about video games and the video game graphics, and that's sort of our idea, because, you know, it's kind of an interesting topic to talk about, and I don't think anyone's covered it yet, so...
Yes, and mostly Paiman plays a lot of Minecraft, and people diss Minecraft for its graphics.
People diss Minecraft for its graphics
Well-
in 2020?
Well,
Really?
here.
Okay. Just,
Here in my
just
country.
saying, just so people know, Minecraft RTX is actually going to be a thing.
Okay,
Like,
so
I mean,
officially.
if people hate the graphics, just put shaders on or something.
Yeah, at least for the computers that can't
yeah,
really
for
handle
compute
RTX. So yeah.
for computers that isn't run by potatoes. Okay.
I hate Minecraft because I can't run it.
2020 be
run?
like,
Can it
can your PC run Minecraft?
in RTX?
Okay.
Okay,
So
so
I
should
think-
we start now?
Yeah.
Okay, so remakes and remasters. Like, do you think? Okay, let me just ask you. Do you think they can be necessary sometimes?
Depends on how long it was made. Like, how long ago it was made, you know?
I think it
Like an
depends
Because-
in like if something like what's an example? Final Fantasy. Like there's a recent remake, right?
Yeah.
It's and Final Fantasy is like a series that has been running for so long, and Final Fantasy 7 is like one of the most famous Final Fantasy games, and then as you can see, the graphics of Final Fantasy is like blocky textures, the original one. And then when we go to like Final Fantasy 8, we get the I don't know if it's the original one, but I played the ones with the actual humanoid figures. So I think remaking a game is really necessary, especially if it's a long running series. Like, do you know what I get? Do you know what I mean?
So you don't think it's necessary, is what your
No, I
ultimate
think
idea here
it's
is?
necessary if it's like a famous game, and people,
Okay.
and in order to make it more beautiful, you like remaster it.
A great example.
Sorry, you can go ahead.
A great example is the Resident Evil series. Like Resident Evil 2 and 3 are being remade, and it actually did a pretty good job doing so. Like, it actually introduced me to the Resident Evil series. Like, I've never heard of the original ones or played it. So having them like remake something that I can actually watch or just play sometimes, like, kind of just works out.
Yeah, exactly.
I sort
Like,
of have some... Oh, sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that I kind of have some strong feelings about, like, whether remakes and remasters are necessary, but it's just kind of like, you know, I think it's good when it's, like, a selective thing, because, like, sometimes old games, they just don't exist anymore. They're not sold. Like, for instance, like, the old Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game, the original for that, it no longer exists because it was sold on, like, Game Boy and DS or whatever, and they don't sell those games anymore. But like recently, we had a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon for the Switch, and it's like a reimagining of the game. Lots of like UI improvements, and yeah, it's like reliving your childhood, introducing people to something that you enjoyed as a child. That's something that I think is kind of special. So I guess like a remake and a remaster is only really necessary if you don't plan on selling the original anymore. That's sort of kind of the way I've seen it. Obviously, some people have stronger opinions where they're like, oh, well, if you're remastering something that, you know, already exists and I can buy right now, then it seems a little redundant. And to some extent, I can kind of agree with that. So,
Oh, basically it's like reliving a dead game.
Yes, exactly. Or just an old game,
yeah, so,
not necessarily a dead game. Yeah.
But the
yeah,
only
so
thing
you,
but the only thing I don't like about remakes is that there are some remakes that changes their entire gameplay. Like for example, Final Fantasy. I like the turn-based strategy game that they have, but on the but on the but on the remastered one, it's like a combat based where you like it happens in real time and not in combat. So it just ruins the originality of Final Fantasy that I grew on. That's the only thing that is negative for me in
Can I?
remakes.
I can understand that.
Because some games I
like,
like. Some games remakes but still keeps their original gameplay, but there are just some that changes their entire gameplay that I don't like.
story wise, it's the same, right?
Actually, some changes the story in order because some of them wait, hold on. Because some of them is like doesn't look that good for a remaster, so they decide to chop off that part of the game and then replace it with a new one. So I think that's another negative thing about that, but it's still a positive thing since it could be a new thing for like you're playing this remaster, but the only thing that's changed is the graphics. But if you add more elements into it, you're like, oh, it's like I'm playing the same old game, but at the same time, it's a new game.
That's what a remaster should be. Okay, so remakes and remaking a game and remastering a game are two different things. Like remaking a game means you pretty much have to make the game from scratch. Like you know what I mean.
Sure.
And remastering a game is basically like taking a game and like polishing it up. But but it still need. But it's kind of like what Ishizaki said. Like you need at least new stuff with it, so that it can at least feel different than before.
I think a game that has been remade a lot is like Super Mario and Sonic, I think.
Sonic Sonic games never aged well, did they?
I don't even know. I haven't like played it fully.
I mean, a lot of like sprite based games that are like sequels to each other look like they're pretty much the exact same game, but
Well,
like each
well,
Mario game added different mechanics that made them unique.
But some of them are just I mean like there's some games where level 1 of Super Mario is the same as the other ones and that is something that's making players tired. I mean like there's some Super Mario games that I actually like that looks different. Like those Super Mario where it's like an RPG game.
Oh, sure.
That
Is that
is
like the storybook series or not storybook? That's Sonic. It's like Mario and Luigi, I think.
yes. And it's a total game changer because it's still a platformer, but at the same time, it becomes a new, different game genre, and it's something I like that, and it's something that I liked when they like remake the Super Mario game into that version, or not remake. It's more like uh, a sequel, I think.
Yeah. Also, kind of a tangent, but I actually found out kind of semi recently that that studio was the studio that made those like Mario and Luigi games is actually like shutting down because they've had a lot of financial issues.
Oh,
So I
like
don't think we'll be expecting I don't think we'll be expecting another one of those Mario and Luigi games. Not for a long, long time if they do decide to ever invest in that again.
okay,
But
so
yeah, tangent aside, I think that yeah, those games are pretty interesting.
like
I think I kind of want to, since we're talking about like kind of Mario, Sonic, kind of like these old sprite games, I kind of want to transition into what makes retro games like popular in the modern era, because obviously graphically they're not like super fascinating, but I'd like to kind of find your
Retro
opinions on
pixel
those.
pixel graphics can still be beautiful today. Well, it just depends on how the artist like.
but okay, here's the thing. What what retro games do you still like to play or you still like up to now?
Tetris.
Well, oh,
Oh my god, I'm the same.
Tetris. Not sure if mine is really a retro, but it's based on a really old first-person shooter, or pretty much the first person. But it's Blade of Agony. I wouldn't really say it's retro.
Oh,
I'm gonna look at it.
wait, aren't first person shooter is like really 2D, but it looks like it's forced into 3D?
Yeah, like Doom.
Oh,
Yeah, although to be fair, it doesn't look like it has that much like it doesn't look like the graphics are that bad.
Yeah,
Wolfenstein is
yeah.
not that bad a looking game. Or it's
Although
Wolfen Doom, sorry.
well, it's Wolfenstein. But there's this one really incredible mod that I'm playing right now. It's Blade of Agony. It's like Wolfenstein, but just how do I say this? It just made way better. Like the gameplay feels like today's Medal of Honor or something like that.
So do
oh,
you
I
think
see
that
now.
developers that were making older games were more focused on sort of gameplay aspects and less about like making their game look good? They wanted it to feel good.
Sometimes, yeah.
So I guess I can kind of transition this to do you think that we should be making games more playable or should we make games look better?
Okay, so for playable, I think what comes into me here is like playing a game real smoothly, and eye appealing is like playing a game on low FPS, like it's pretty choppy movements. But when you look at the graphics, it's like really good.
It would work for me to be
So
honest. Like I'd
so it's
still
like
just
playing
I'd,
Minecraft.
oh my god, I'd still lower the graphics to be honest. Like at least giving it medium, just like medium settings, especially on some AAA games.
But
But
let's say it's like two separate games. Which game would you rather play? A game that like looks bad but it's playable, or a game that isn't necessarily like the most playable, but it looks gorgeous?
Old one, like the playable one,
And why are you drawn towards that one?
because I just want to have fun most of the time.
okay, he's more on the fun side, more and less on the artistic side. I think I would
Okay,
play it based on I guess gameplay. Because there are some games, even though it's pretty laggy, it's still playable.
like a mixture of both.
Yes. But when it comes to playable, I actually like low graphics game more than the new ones. I like the new ones, but it's just I don't know. It it's just not for me or something like that. Because up to now, I would still play Terraria. And you know, Terraria is like a pixel-based game, but it doesn't have those heavy textures, except if you add a texture pack. But since it doesn't have a heavy texture, it's it's really playable.
Yeah, that's true.
But I guess I can't take those games which are like first person shooter. Yeah, the graphics are good, but when you actually play it, it's like eh
Yeah,
because for because you have
there's actually
experience first. Yeah, hold on.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
like there's actually a game, a first-person shooter, another first-person shooter, which is it is like 2004, but I still play it because of how fun it is.
I mean,
It's
I still play Team Fortress.
really. I actually
Yeah,
still play Half-Life 2 and the episodes.
I've never actually played those games before.
Honestly, it somehow still looks really good despite the outdated textures, and it's mostly because of the level design and how the environments look. How, and there's even a mod that pretty much updates the gameplay to a higher level that and make it feel modern a bit.
Okay, so I have a question for you.
Yeah,
If they, instead of making Half-Life 3, remade Half-Life 1 and 2, and like it's basically the exact same game but with like super updated graphics, and let's say it's still playable,
there's
would
actually
you prefer that? Would you prefer that to maybe same graphics but Half-Life 3?
honestly there's actually there's an actual remake of Half Life One. It's called Black Mesa, and it honestly had
Yeah, I saw Black Mesa. I was
really
just
good
curious what you
graphics.
would.
Yes, you know what? Honestly, yes, I would rather play I would rather play this remake because it actually like improves a lot of things as well. That it actually makes it more fun to play.
Yeah, it makes an already fun game kind of more enjoyable. That's fair.
Another thing is, okay, we'll here have played the GTA series,
Oh, good. Yeah,
Grand Theft
I don't
Auto.
own it, but I've played it.
I'm
San
like,
Andreas, baby.
yes, exactly. There's two games that is like super popular when it comes to Grand Theft Auto. It would be a either San Andreas or GTA
Vice City.
5. Oh,
Oh,
I mean like GTA 5 is more heard than San Andreas, but what
Yeah,
well,
I'm
GTA
obviously
5
because
is
it's
literally
newer.
like one of the biggest games on Steam.
exactly, but what I'm talking what I'm talking about is that they're both the same game, right? But
Yeah,
the other one has just greater graphics. But people still prefers GTA San Andreas, um, even though the graphics looks kind of wonky compared to GTA 5. And this is where the gameplay over graphics comes along, or the story over graphics. Because GTA 5, I played around it and I finished it actually, and it's a lot shorter than GTA San Andreas.
really.
Yes, and apparently, some people actually doesn't want GTA 6. Instead, they want GTA San Andreas to be remodeled or
No, no,
remade.
you know what? No. I won't say that. I don't want Vice City, like remastered Vice City.
But what about San Andreas?
I mean, isn't GTA 5 already pretty much San Andreas at this point?
I mean, well, GTA 5 has different characters, and I think that's what makes me attached to GTA San Andreas.
Well, I'm talking about the map. Well, obviously they're different since GTA 5 is basically just one island, one really big island. And something that I really like about San Andreas is that there are three islands that are pretty much different cities.
Exactly, and that's what makes the game long and pretty much more interesting to some people because there's more places to like
Explore.
yes, exactly.
And
But I
somehow at
okay,
other times like GTA San Andreas kind of feels even bigger than GTA 5. Like some people agree with it. Anyways, what were you saying?
Honestly, I think GTA San Andreas is. I mean, like, this is my opinion. I don't want to get, like, roasted in the comment section. I think GTA 5. I mean, GTA San Andreas is a lot better than GTA 5 because I'm that type of person where, like, graphics over. I mean, like,
You think you're
story
alone?
over graphics.
You think you're alone? Because I do agree. Well, even though I haven't played GTA 5. Yeah.
Are you guys big on reading?
What?
Not that much.
Because I'm
Uh,
curious, because you're saying a better story is better than like what it looks like, I guess. So like if even if you polish something, if it has a worse story. So I was just curious if you guys were like into reading at all because that's sort of
well, I'm not into reading.
I guess
Oh, I mean, if there are. I mean, like, I know this is a video game topic, but let's switch to anime for a second, because you know that anime is different from the manga, and the anime bases on the manga. So what I'm saying here is that if the animation is good, I would watch the animation, but if it doesn't look that good, I would rather just spend my life on the manga rather than watching that. So basically, I'm trying to say is I like the story more. So it's basically uh I'm there for the story, but if the graphics is like okay, then I'll go along with that. But if the graphics is bad and it's making the story really uninteresting to me, and I would just rather switch to reading it rather than watching it rather um because I don't want to get bored of that certain story.
okay, I see. I was just curious because it was like I was like, okay, well you like the story. I was just curious about like how you wanted that delivered to you. And so I guess does the mode of the delivery of a story really matter to you? Like whether it be in the form of a video game, a book, or an anime, as you said.
Yes.
Okay, so I mean that's fair. I mean, some people prefer like a different delivery methods for their stories. I was just curious if it was like, regardless of where you find the story, if it's a good story, then I will try my best to kind of keep up with it.
Yeah, if I like the story
Okay.
that much.
Um, Out of curiosity, are there any stories in video games that you've really like that have like really stuck out to you?
If I would say one game, it would be Telltale's The Walking Dead. I'm like I like the series when because I've been watching it for like when I was a child. I mean when I was a child because I actually like the story and then Telltale suddenly announced that they won't be making any more of that.
I mean,
So
Yeah.
well, isn't it done? Like, isn't like the end of
yes,
the
it's
Walking Dead series?
yes because the people wanted it to be done, but before it was done, they already announced that they won't finish it. They won't finish that series because they're already out of budget to finish that series. So I think
How
We
about
get an
if
F in
I
the chat
could
for
get a
Minecraft story mode.
yeah, exactly. F in the chat. If I could get I'll be satisfied if I could get my hands on their script and just read on what happens.
Huh? I guess that's interesting. And if we're talking about stories in video games, I'd say like the most like what's the most interested in when it comes to stories is like pretty much the Half Life series. And you know Valve, like they haven't made a really they haven't made a single player story game in like 13 years. And they just kept Half Life fans waiting.
I actually have no comments since I haven't
Yeah, I
played
know.
the game.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I can see it.
But I heard there's like a new game called Half-Life Alyx or
Alex,
something like
Half-Life
that.
Alex,
Yes.
Half-Life Alex. Yeah, yes, I actually watched that. And I'm just gonna love the game for that story and actually continuing it at least 30 seconds. So what's next? Like, do you guys want to move on to a new topic?
Um, sure. I guess I kind of want to continue on this sort of story aspect because
Oh, sure.
um because we started talking about like video game graphics and stuff, but I'm curious about like how important is a story in a video game to you? Like, would you say it's one of the only selling points for a video game, or would you say that it's kind of you buy based on how it looks, and a nice story is just a bonus?
Honestly, sometimes it doesn't really matter. Like, you can just people can just some devs can just make a game just for the fun of it. Like, no need for the story. And if some game devs out there just wanted to make a game just to tell a story. Then it's actually what did I say here? It's
So
Uh,
basically, it's like uh, Minecraft. Minecraft doesn't have a particular story, but it's still selling because of the gameplay.
yeah, you pretty much you have your own story. You make your own story.
yeah. I have a curious like sort of outlier game that I kind of want to talk about real quick since it's not exactly like 100% like people are buying it for its gameplay. And it doesn't necessarily have like the greatest story. Cuphead. It
Oh,
I think a lot of people buy it because it's like really like pleasing to the eye, just to kind of see like the hand drawn like rubber hose animation. I think a lot of people bought it because of how it looks and not necessarily because it's a hard game.
and I'm pretty
Also,
sure it's not also not because of the story.
Right. I don't think people are like, "Oh my god, am I going to be able to defeat the devil?" Like I don't know that so many people were like really that invested in that particular aspect of the story, but I think a lot of people are like, "This is a really well like drawn thing." So I'm just curious if you guys think that having a story in a game like Cuphead would necessarily be like kind of like would you buy Cuphead if it had like the story it has, or would you be more willing to buy it if it had like a really good story in the like I don't know, like would you buy it because of the story, I guess is my
I mean, like,
question.
if you're talking about only the aesthetic aspect of Cuphead, where like it's hand drawn, I would just like rather watch it on YouTube for
Yeah, the
gameplay.
same. Yeah, same here.
Okay.
Cuphead is heavily very appreciated, mostly because of the style it has.
Yeah, I think Cuphead is one of those games where it's like, if you haven't really like you haven't really experienced Cuphead until you've played it, so I guess it's sort of my experience with it cuz like, there's definitely a different sort of experience between like watching somebody play on YouTube and like being able to control the animations yourself, and it really is just something else. But yeah, I would probably buy it without a good story. Like even if it had like no context, just it's a boss rush game, I would probably still buy it.
Another thing people do with games is like they dig for the lore of the game. So I'm just curious if some of you would actually do that. Like, would you try and dig for the lore of the game in order to understand the story better?
Yes,
I would probably disagree. Um,
I would agree with
I've
that.
seen people do over analysis of games. I'm looking at FNAF right now.
Oh,
I've seen people
Oh,
do over analysis of games, and it completely like ruins the experience for me at least, because it's like I didn't need to read this much into a just a game. Like I just wanna, if the game doesn't tell me outright what it wants me to know, then I don't know that I would want to. I would have wanted to. I would have wanted to find that out, I guess.
I mean, like the worst thing about finding for a lore on a video game is that you don't know if it's canon, or you don't know if it's the correct one.
Or if you have to look on a developer's website in order to find out like things about a game, like it just seems a little bit unnecessary. Nomar, you said you would actually look through lore to find more about a
Yes.
story, though.
Well,
So
it depends
can
on
you
the
kind of
story.
elaborate?
Well, it depends on the core story. Like, okay, yeah. Just okay. So how do I start this? Okay, I feel like I'm just fanboying over Half Life now because yeah, I actually love like analyzing like the lore of Half Life and how the pretty much plot goes. And that's pretty much all I can say. Like, I don't know how else
Okay.
to say this.
But I think the
So it
only
kind of depends on the story.
but I think the only difference between FNAF and other games is like Scott Cawthon actually amuses or what's the correct word for this? Entertains the ones who are trying to uncover the lore by posting things on on his website, on his like Twitter and things like that.
Sure, but it seems a little unnecessary if I have to, go on any like I don't want to find out like the lore behind a game if it's not in the game itself. Like I don't want to have to roam around for Easter eggs on all of his different social medias. It seems a little bit a obsessive and b sort of redundant if I'm doing that all the time just to find like a little nugget of like oh my god I found out like the identity of the purple man. Like I don't know, it seems a little bit crazy to me, just sort of the fervor with which some people are obsessed with lore. I don't think lore is a bad thing necessarily, but if you make that sort of like your identity finding out the lore, I don't know, it kind of detracts from the experience for me because I don't get into the games for their lore. I get into games because of either their story or their gameplay or their aesthetic, just sort of more general things.
So basically, if like the game doesn't give you on what happens, then you'll probably give no care about it.
Yeah, if the game isn't going to tell me why something is happening, but the developer on his website says, "Oh, well, it's because of this," or on his Reddit, he's like, maybe it's because of this." I don't want to have to read into what the developer is saying behind the scenes to figure out what the hell their story means, you know?
Well, it's a good thing for like there are games that uh the lore for it is like you understand the lore when you play the game more. Like
Yeah. I mean, like, kind of a self-contained package, you know? Like, I wouldn't want to play, like, Super Mario Galaxy if I had to, like, read on the Nintendo website every, like, 30 minutes, like, oh, hey, this is happening because of this. There's a war happening here, and this is, like, they have everything kind of explained in neat little cutscenes, and I'm appreciative of that because I don't want to have to go out of my way to figure out what the heck's going on in the story. If that makes sense.
yeah. But speaking of
Um,
stories and I think I'm going to relate this to the other topic which is retro games. I'm pretty sure every one of us has heard of Undertale.
yes.
Yes, I've heard of it.
So, uh, okay, so I'm going to go back even more to remakes and remasters. Have you actually played Undertale,
No, and
or
I
have
don't
you
think
watched it?
both. I haven't done both.
Oh,
I'm actually planning on playing it on my channel.
for
Okay.
content. So basically, I was going to ask if because Undertale is a really good game, in my opinion, and the fact that it makes you choose different routes for a different ending is just really neat. And I
I was
think
finding
I was about to ask a question if will you play the game if like if the game was remastered?
I don't know. I don't think I will.
the game is so iconic in its art style right now. I don't know that I would be able to really follow an Undertale remaster. Um, just because you get so used to sort of seeing the sprites and that RPG aspect. I don't know that it would be um really feasible. Like it would probably like play a lot like a Wii game or something, and I don't know that I would really want that.
I think Undertale is like really known for their 8-bit.
It's the story.
Oh, I mean like if you see something like uh there are some things that are recognizable. Like if you see something like this, oh, that's Undertale. That's what I mean by being known for their 8-bit uh type of graphics. And if they decide to like remaster it, then another problem I have with remaster. Sorry if I came back with that topic.
It's
Is
alright.
that they are known for that type of graphics, right? And if they decide to remaster it, then they're basically losing the point of where they started in the first place. Like for example, Minecraft is known for its uniqueness, right? It's a
Yeah.
survival game, but it's has a blocky texture, and people know that, and know people know Minecraft because of that. And okay, Pieman, if Minecraft was going to be remastered into a more smoother game, would you play it?
No, 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 no. I love the. I
um,
love. I already love Minecraft the way it is. It. I don't
well,
think it
what's
doesn't.
fascinating is oh,
You might
sorry, you can go ahead.
just go with mods. Just download mods that change the gameplay if you want.
I
You
was
can
just gonna
even
say
make
Notch, the creator, is actually working on something that's exactly what you're talking about, like Minecraft, except it's not like Minecraft.
Minecraft dungeons.
Oh
No,
wait,
not
no, no,
Minecraft
no.
Dungeons.
I think
Oh,
I've heard of
okay.
this before. I just forget about it. But I think playing remastered Minecraft is like a different feeling. Like you'll feel like this is not Minecraft anymore. This is not the same game that I used to play. If they
I don't know that
remaster,
its I purpose was to be Minecraft though.
well, it depends on your gameplay.
Yeah. Well, defeating. Wait, what are you talking about again?
Sort of
We're talking
Minecraft
about Minecraft
remaster.
remastering.
Okay.
But there are some people who like takes those pixel games into like a really takes them to their limit. Like for example, making Minecraft builds that really looks like real life things. And apparently
Yeah.
people are creating mods for some pixel games that could make them a lot better. I mean, like, what's your comment about that?
Oh, if you want to play Minecraft in a different way, just, never mind.
No, I
Not gonna
mean,
pursue that one.
Yeah, I kind of lost. I'm kind of lost.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were gonna say something?
No.
You?
no.
Oh, what
Okay,
about
sorry.
you?
Um, I don't know. Like if it's hard to say, like kind of how a remaster of a game that already exists would work, because like you really don't know until it's done. I kind of like talked about Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. The original one was like completely pixelated, like it came out on the Game Boy, right?
Yeah.
And now like its new one is completely 3D. It's got like this sort of like watercolor design. Like it's a completely different looking game. So I don't know that necessarily you have to attach a game with its art style. Um, if the game's art style doesn't necessarily detract from the story that it has or the gameplay that it has, then I guess I don't really see much of an issue with it. So bringing this back to sort of a Minecraft remake, if they ever remade it and it wasn't like completely block game, but the graphics didn't take away from the experience of like you punch a tree and the tree is floating still or something, then I guess I might not have as much of an issue with it, you know. So if it still felt like Minecraft, I guess I really wouldn't have that much of an issue with it.
Okay, so do you guys want to move on to the last topic now, or
What is it? What is it?
do background elements add to experience?
Alright, then what do you mean by that?
So, I guess like even like in back like 2D platformers, right? Um, if you look at like Super Mario World, you know how like they have like the different like clouds and like little blocks or like the little I guess like half circles of like stuff like kind of the background, right? Like the scrolling background. Um, I guess like do you think that really adds to, like the experience of the game?
I'd say
And
I'd say
if they
definitely
didn't
yes.
have that, would you if they didn't have those background elements, would you still buy the game?
Well, if it's still fun to play, then yeah.
Okay.
I think backgrounds are just there to make everything look lively, but there are some backgrounds which are um at, really attractable and really appealing to the eyes because it's so good and it looks uh really lively.
So what sort of games are you talking about?
I'm talking about games like the new God of War or the Doom. Like if you look at the Doom's background, it like has a depth to it. Like there's the fallen mech, there's the demon where like he's carrying a castle and he's walking around. There's those things that are flying in the background. Like it's such a nice experience when playing that, and I think it really adds a lot to the experience. Like those types of background is like to make things more lively. While in Super Mario, where like the only background there is like the wait, what is the background in Super Mario?
Oh,
They
this
have
is it.
like clouds and like these little like half circle things and like at least in Super Mario World. And that's like in the overworld, like they have also like the caves and sort of these other like settings. But like if it was just like um the platforms and the like a blank like one color background, I guess is sort of what I'm kind of talking about.
For me, it looks so plain that it's making the game a bit
Kind of,
boring.
yeah, it's kind of like fish. It kind of makes it like lazy.
So would you say that background elements sort of help games feel fresh when you're playing it for like the second time or something?
Yeah.
Okay. I know this is especially true for like 3D games though, because when you're playing a 3D game, you can explore
Oh
kind of
yes.
more than you would in a 2D
But
game.
It
one
should
thing
have.
I want to rant about is the new Final Fantasy VII remake. I mean like if you see it has a nice graphic and all, but the Sector 5 the Sector 5 mission where like you bomb Sector 5, there's like a overview of the whole town, and if you look at the background of that top view of the town, it looks really flat.
It looks like a landfill.
It it looks like just an image taken and then just stretched out to make it look normal because it's so low. It's not even that noticeable.
Yeah. Real quick, Hatena, can you put this image on screen? I'm gonna hear about this later now that I've said it.
Okay. Oh
I
yeah,
mean, like if you're
I can
gonna
see.
put it
I
on
can see what.
screen, I can. If you're gonna put
I
it
can.
screen, I think I can give
Oh,
a
oh yeah,
better
I can
image.
see what. Okay, I can see what you're talking about right now. It does look really flat.
Like the shading and stuff just looks really off.
Yeah.
So I have a question, like, um, when developers are making games, do you think that they consult people like animators and artists to help with their graphic design, or do you think they just kind of wing it? And people like us, we notice these sorts of things, and we're like, "Oh, this looks gross."
I think some of them, because their budget couldn't reach it, they just try to wing it.
But this is a big company. Do you think they ever like consulted somebody about this? Because this looks awful.
That's actually something I've kind of wondered.
I think what they did here is like they have more focus on something else other than making the background look good.
Not sure.
But even like foreground elements don't necessarily look great, at least in this screenshot that you've shown. Like they're probably better than in the original, but they don't exactly look like, ah, yes, I'd go see a movie that looked like this.
But okay, so another thing is, what do you think about interactable backgrounds?
I think I think they're great.
Like backgrounds that doesn't actually have that actually has more depth into it. What's
So
that?
like something that you can kind of toggle with, like backgrounds that you can kind of like mess around with.
Yeah,
That's a good example.
Um, have you guys heard of the Stanley Parable?
I've heard of that many
No.
times, but I never actually played it.
All right, well, this is probably like the greatest example of like what a game that has a toggleable like environment should be like. Because aside from just like walking through doors and that's making your choices, you can actually like interact with the environment sometimes to make more choices, and it completely like derails your story if you do it. Like for instance, sometimes if you like turn computer monitors on and off in a certain way, you get a different ending.
Wow.
If you unplug a phone, I think during one of the routes, you get a completely different ending. And then there's just like there's a room full of buttons that you can literally hang out in, and you can just mess around with those. So I don't know that I think if done correctly, like in the Stanley Parable, like if it really adds to the experience, I think having a background that you can kind of mess around with does add a lot. Although I don't think it's always the case where it's a great thing, because like if you look to an example, I think like Skyrim, where you can like pick stuff up. I don't know that that really necessarily adds much for me. Like other than like picking up items that I need, like I don't really need to pick up a bowl and be able to hold that around unless I'm speedrunning. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think the Skyrim pick up everything is like a really nice feature, but I think it's like too much.
At least for some game, it's pretty unnecessary.
I mean, I like it that they're making it more realistic because you can actually pick up these stuff rather than other games where you like jump over the table and still doesn't fall off. But I think it's just too over the top. Like it's fine if you just walk over it and then it falls over. That's fine. But the fact that it's picking it up just doesn't feel good for me. I mean, like it depends if you want to collect things.
Yeah, I think another sort of really good environment that like you can kind of mess around with is Minecraft. Obviously, like you break a tree, it pops out. That that sort of mechanic feels good because it's like you know that if you hold left click for enough time, you should be able to get an item as long as you're breaking it with the right tools. So I guess mechanics like that sort of because it adds progression too. Like if I don't break it with like a stone pickaxe, I won't get it right.
Yeah.
But like
I think the only
um
problem with backgrounds is like the open world games.
Yeah.
Like the main point of open world is like you can explore anywhere, but there's like backgrounds that there's like places where you shouldn't be, and the background there is just non-interactable at all.
so like when you go out of bounds in an open world or what?
Yeah, because I want to explore this world more, but apparently the game doesn't want me to, so you become unsatisfied with it. But I
Well, I
get,
mean, like people don't really well, I guess people who regularly go outside world borders probably aren't aiming to play the game. So I guess it to me it doesn't seem like that big a deal that they don't really account for people that are going to try and glitch their way out of the world. I can't really. I guess if you have like a specific example of a game that like really messes that up, but I guess I can't really think of anything that like super is like, oh my god, this game is so broken. I can't explore anything properly because it's all broken.
but one smart way of doing that is like, what Team Fortress does. I know it's not an open game, but there are backgrounds to Team Fortress that isn't a real background, like it's just an illusion for your eyes. And what they do for that is just block it off so that you don't go out of bounds. I think they do the same thing on CSGO or any Counter-Strike games.
Okay, so you mean like if they leave like kind of an unintended back door into like a void or something?
Yes.
Okay. So a game like Minecraft single player, it doesn't really bother you like that people can kind of like jump into chunks before they're loaded because that wasn't really an intended feature.
Yeah, because
Okay.
Minecraft is uh an all-out open world game, and you can interact with almost anything.
I'm pretty sure you well, okay, not everything cuz you can't really like you can't break bedrock and you can't break barrier blocks. But I think other than those, you can break everything else. But yeah, Minecraft does a lot of stuff really well, just as far as like kind of gameplay feel, and I think it's because of the sort of how they incorporate how you interact with the game. I think that's what really makes it an appealing game that doesn't necessarily require a story. I think there was one topic that we didn't really touch upon. If you guys want to kind of jump back a little bit,
What is it?
um, why do you guys think that games like Tetris are popular?
Hmm.
Because I'm kind of a Tetris junkie, but I'm curious about like sort of other people's opinions on games like Tetris, or Asteroids, or some of these are like really old games that like
Unlike
kind of only existed on arcades.
Tetris in itself, I don't think I can think of any other way you could remaster that game other
I've heard
than
of one.
stacking blocks. So I think Tetris is popular because it's like the I think Tetris is popular because of its original gameplay.
So you think because it was like the first to do it, it was everyone just
Yes.
kind of flocked to it as like, oh my gosh, this is like the pinnacle of this type of game. Because I think behind Minecraft, Tetris is the second most bought game ever.
Who it does?
People still play Tetris because of its gameplay, just like I said, but I think some retro games are really popular because of their, just like Cuphead, they have that aesthetic feel, like old school feel to it.
It's pretty much the
Okay.
purpose of retro games, right? Nowadays.
Yeah, I think it's just a style that attracts a certain crowd. I don't think retro games are for everyone, but for the people who really enjoy that sort of art style, retro games they look kind of aesthetically pleasing for them because they really like the look of it. And then gameplay wise, usually I think retro games focus more on like how precise can they make movements, sort of they focus more on game feel than they do on how it looks, how it's presented. This isn't always the case because sometimes you get things like ET for the Atari, but a lot of the time older games have this sort of focus on the gameplay as opposed to anything else, and I think that really is what cements a lot of them as like sort of gems for a lot of people nowadays, where they want to play more of those.
Actually, are there still people who plays like really old games? Like not, I know somewhere in the world they still do, but someone who actually makes it into content.
Yeah, I mean there are people who literally they do nothing but play Tetris, like professional Tetris players. It's insane.
But what about not non-Tetris games like the original Super
Oh,
Mario?
sure. Oh, like yeah, obviously like there are people who like speed run it nowadays. That's kind of how you make content on that. But there are people who like speed run Mario games, like really old Mario games. Um, like other old games like Asteroids. Those are games that people still play.
I think
Um,
that's a reason why some retro games are still popular because there's just a certain goal you need to reach
well,
and
even
see
then,
if you
like
can.
games like Pac-Man, there's no real goal other than like collect all the dots.
Yeah,
But
basically,
yeah, go ahead.
now you go ahead.
Um, Actually, I think there's some people who still tries to like speedrun Pac-Man, but what I'm trying to say is I think the main point of retro games still being popular is that I think people are trying to achieve something and see if they can achieve it even better, which is the main point of a speedrun.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, it's fair enough.
All right. Well, I think we've kind of run through our list of topics about video games, graphics. We've even gone into story, which I don't think we were intending to originally. So, we've kind of touched upon a lot of gameplay elements that sort of make games more interesting, and hopefully, this has given you guys some insight on sort of how animators and artists sort of interpret video game graphics, stories, and gameplay, and how important they are for games in general. If you have any sort of disagreements, you can leave that in the comment section below so that this video gets promoted because there's engagement. Do you guys have anything you guys want to plug before we sign off?
I don't think so.
I mean, like I just want to
You don't want to.
say it doesn't matter what game you play as long as you enjoy it
Yes,
All right,
because
guys. Do you want to like shout out your channels real quick?
yeah, I guess so. Like, just I guess subscribe to my channel. That's probably going to be in the description below.
subscribe to Ishizaki for like animation content and more Hatina content.
And I'm Pieman12 official on YouTube or Pieman12YT pretty much everywhere else. So
Please
yeah,
subscribe
thank
to
you
him.
guys.
He's the smallest channel.
Thank you. Literally the smallest channel on the Animacast. It's pretty dope.
Well, I'm the second
But yeah,
smallest.
if you guys watch this thing the whole way through, thank you. Please leave a like, leave a comment down below. Subscribe to everybody who has been a part of this, and subscribe to Animacast because we need more engagement on this channel. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you hopefully without Hatena next time. Bye.
Alright.